So why did we decide to go with a brand new engine as opposed to rebuilding our old and tired small block? Well, you might have noticed when we started it up, we had that rod knock. That big ass rod knock that everybody within a 150-mile radius heard. Well, that's kind of the reason. Whoa. Well, still going. And to be honest with you, we're not gonna know what was wrong with this thing until we pull it apart. There could be pistons, cranks, stuff floating around, and honestly, we don't wanna deal with that. So what did we do? We thought about it and we said, well, we still wanna keep the car with a traditional small block so we can use all the accessories that came off it. That saves us time, that saves us hassle, and it saves us money. But which one to go with? What we did was we called our friends at Edelbrock, and they provided us with this 380 horsepower, 401 pound-foot of torque tire fryer that we're going to install today on the Camaro in this episode of IROC Rehab.
So the question of why we're going with a brand new engine for this project's come up a lot while we've been working on it. You heard Mike talk about the fact that the old 350's blown up, so we know that's going to be a whole project unto itself, and it would take a while to get the parts and get a place to do it. We had started talking to Edelbrock about this project when we first got the car, and we were excited about working on the TPI. So when the engine was bad, we went back to them to see what they thought we ought to do. That's when we learned about the brand new 350 crate engines they're providing. They also turned us on to the ProFlow EFI, which is part of this crate package. It's a much better option for today where you want to tune a car. We might want to make changes to this engine later. The ProFlow uses an air gap intake, which is a real high flowing design. It's also very easy to tune, and it's going to support the 380 horsepower this makes and 401 pound-feet of torque, which, when we discussed with the guys at Edelbrock, they felt was an excellent power range for what we wanted to do with this car as an occasional track day unit that also sees some street use. We've gotten a lot of work done on the new engine and transmission. They're assembled together and on the engine cradle, and we've gotten a lot of the details taken care of while it's out here, putting the headers on, some of the wiring and other details that have to be done. Now we're ready to get it up into the car, so let's bring the guys in and get back to work.
The key to making a job like this go smoothly is preparation and the wherewithal to anticipate problems before they arise. Properly prepping the engine, transmission, and drive system was one thing, but also paying special attention to the actual engine compartment and getting that ready was another. But as you'll see, and regardless of what you do, there will always be some issues that you'll have to overcome.
Dude, it's starting to look like a car again.
It's getting there.
So how difficult it is, I mean, the motor's in, the trans is in, is the wiring and all that, is that the stuff that really takes the longest?
Yeah, I mean, the devil's in the details.
Right.
It's all motions, but it's going from the automatic to the standard. It's safety switches and there's
all that fun stuff?
Yeah, a lot of stuff that's got to be, addressed.
So I found this on the cart. Is this what I think it is?
Yeah, an old 80s car alarm, which will go in the garbage over there.
Right, well, I'm gonna take care of that then right now. So I think it's important for people to realize, like, getting the motor and the transmission in the car is actually the easy part. It's all the extra stuff. It's all the wiring. It's all the ancillary components, the front drive system, lining the pulleys, that takes time. It's making the gauges work and getting the fuel lines and the brake lines hooked up and the clutch master hooked up. That's the tough part. This is where you see those projects online that says project car for sale. 50,000 into it, $4 grand. You know what I mean? So the beauty of it is, we've got, Junior, Glenn, Douglas, Terry, literally some of the best techs in the business that are cranking on this thing. And the scary part for me is, like, I look at this and I'm terrified, and these guys just look at me and they're like, Musto, just get out of the way and let us do our job. They make it look easy.
All right, making good progress. It's time to drop in the new radiator. So we've got a brand new unit from US Radiator. We're actually going to wind up doing the opposite of what a lot of people are forced to do these days. With a lot of cars, older cars, you go to get a new radiator and replace your factory brass copper unit. You open the box and you find a plastic and aluminum unit. This car actually came from the factory with an aluminum and plastic radiator. US Radiator made us this brass copper unit that's going to replace it directly. It should drop right in. It's got the heater hose connection here, which is kind of unusual for Chevy, and we're expecting it to fit right into the factory cradles in there. One other thing we had to do was, since we've changed the intake with the ProFlow setup, the TPI has kind of an unusual thermostat housing, and it's a small diameter. This has more of a traditional arrangement. So we got a regular thermostat housing for Mr. Gasket for the engine, and then this hose is for a 305 from the same year Camaro, 305 4-barrel. It's got the big end for the thermostat and the small end to fit the TPI type radiator. So we're hoping this whole deal is going to bolt right up.
So come on in, let's show you the car. So this is it. This is the 87 IROC, and it's good. Like, we started with a decent driver. We didn't want anything too fancy because we knew we were going to take it out and track it and autocross it and just honestly drive and enjoy it. Right. And it's harder to do that with a show car, and that's literally the last thing that we wanted.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I wanted to have a radiator that would fit in the OE spot, and then we built it out of 3 rows of high efficiency fin and tube. So you have a lot more, with high efficiency, you have more tube and you have more fin, so you're gonna get more cooling in the spot. But the main thing was on this particular one was to drop right in and fit in its spot.
And it did do just that. I mean, we took it out of the box, and what was sort of cool is it looks like a radiator for an older GM car, being brass copper. The tanks have the traditional ribbed stampings. It looks very OE. But the radiator that came out of this car, of course, was plastic and aluminum. Right. Dropped right in, sat on the rubbers in the bottom, and you know on these cars you don't have a lot of wiggle room. It has rubbers where it's pulled up against the front, and then the fan assembly has to fit on there pretty tightly. And it's all, you can see it's all on and everything fit just as it's supposed to. And the radiator hose is even sitting the way it's supposed to. Yeah. And everything went right to where it was supposed to be. So for part of our suspension refresh, we definitely wanted new dampers, and that means struts and shocks on the IROC. For the front end, it's got struts, and we wanted to use something good. These are Koni yellows, and the cool thing about them is they're adjustable, so we'll be able to dial these in once we get the car to a track. Putting them in is easy. Got a plastic washer, we reuse the dust boots from the factory, and then the bearing tops. These are the ones that were on the car before. The bearings seem to be good. They don't have any play in them, so we're just going to put them back in, tighten them up, and then we'll get them back up in the car. We like the Konis. There'll be a great split between street and track performance. We got these from Summit. Just going to slide these down to you.
Hand it to me.
And I got it. It's a pretty simple installation. We got the 3 studs up here, 2 nuts and bolts in the bottom, and that's it.
With the new engine and transmission raised back into the engine compartment and the new cooling system from US Radiator installed, it was now time for the guys to address the suspension. Summit Racing was instrumental in helping us obtain our new suspension, which consisted of components from BMR, Koni, and QA1. Now, the goal here was not to transform the Camaro into a full-blown race car, but instead a car that was track day and autocross capable. When it came to the brakes, we didn't perform a massive upgrade. I mean, that will come later. But instead, we replaced all the original components, the calipers, rotors, pads, and the hardware with new parts. The idea was to baseline the Camaro, and then when finished, make decisions concerning modern braking performance sometime down the line.
Are you kidding me? I was gone for 10 minutes. You guys got the whole rear suspension done.
And that is no lie. I went for coffee, and by the time I got back, the rear end was completely put back together. I'm telling you, these guys know how to hustle.
How's it going, Terry?
Good. Junior's got this all buttoned up. Brand new parts. You know, the 3rd gen brakes are too small. We know that. Yeah. But the brakes that were on here were really ratty. So I just ordered a set of drilled and slotted stock size brake rotors I got rebuilt stock calipers. I upgraded to power stop pads, and I got a fresh set of Russell braided brake hoses just to do a minor upgrade on it for now.
You know, I think that's the right way to go. I mean, right now we're not doing. I think people need to understand this isn't a full-blown build, right? We're upgrading and making it better. So I think one of the things, like those calipers are like $24 a caliper. So you can do a budget yet better brake upgrade, which is, I think, for what we have, the right way to go for this car.
Yeah, it's a good place for us to be right now. We can upgrade later if we need to.
Totally. Fits like a glove under here, dude.
This car was meant for a small block Chevy.
I agree with you.
You know, a lot of people do LS swaps, but there's something about just keeping it original. It started life as a small block Chevrolet car. Why not continue that tradition? Just a little modern touches, better fuel injection, better engine, valve train. I heard there's a manual transmission behind this motor.
There is.
So it's gonna be fun to drive.
I think it should be. The other thing I really like about the small block setup is that we can use our entire front drive system. We can keep our AC, we can keep our power steering, our alternator, all the stock brackets bolt right onto this thing.
Remember what I said? Plug and play. It works. It's great.
Well, that's why I'm so excited that we got it in this car right now.
Yeah.
This is cool, dude.
Who's gonna drive it first?
Oh, I'm in.
You're in?
I'm in.
Okay.
What's going on, my friend?
Hey, Mike.
So I know we moved it from the 2-post lift over to the 4-post lift, and I know we did some exhaust modifications as far as mocking it up. What are we doing on this side?
When we were on the 2-post, the suspension was hanging.
Yeah.
And we were putting the exhaust in, and we had some clearance, some interference issues that we wanted to double check. So we put it over here. The car's on its own weight, sitting at ride height. So we're going through, and now they're all non-issue. We're gonna do a makeshift alignment, enough to get it over to the alignment shop on Wednesday. And there's some wiring still to clean up. We've got the clutch master in and bled, so now we have a clutch pedal. And we're getting ready to pull it off and go back over the 2-post and weld the exhaust up.
That's perfect.
Regardless of what people tell you, all exhaust systems need to be mocked up to check for fitment and clearance before they are installed permanently. That means measuring, cutting, and then measuring again to make sure that nothing rattles or rubs. And that once the vehicle is lowered back down to the road surface, that you have sufficient clearance between the pavement and the system itself. Our exhaust, supplied by Summit Racing, consisted of a 3-inch Hooker Super Competition catback that utilized a wide pipe from Doug's headers along with a brand new catalytic converter.
Yeah, just in case. So check it out. It's starting to look like a car again, isn't it? Well, we got our new suspension and exhaust from Summit Racing, our new TKX manual transmission from American Powertrain, of course, our small block from Edelbrock, and the folks at US Radiator are gonna help it keep it cool. But before we get it on the road, there's one more thing we have to do, and that's make it nice. We're not gonna do that until the next episode of IROC Rehab.